Police in San Francisco began an aggressive crackdown on homeless encampments after a U.S. Supreme Court ruling gave cities the green light to step up their sweeps. And according to the most recent point-in-time count conducted at the end of last year, there were more than 4,300 people living in tents, cars, or just on the streets of San Francisco. Our Lauren Tom spoke to residents about whether those sweeps are bringing the changes.
San Francisco can often feel like a meticulously crafted movie set. A mesmerizing fog cascades over the hills, resembling slow-motion smoke. The iconic Golden Gate Bridge carves a bold promise across the horizon. At sunset, glass towers shimmer with an internal glow. Here, tech wealth circulates with a velocity that dwarfs rush hour traffic. And a nascent idea can transmute into $1 billion before the week is out. And yet, veer just a few blocks in an unintended direction, and that gleaming vision of the future abruptly vanishes, not because the city has exhausted its wellspring of innovation, but because it has run out of space and grace for human beings who cannot afford the exorbitant cost of entry. In 2025, San Francisco remains one of the wealthiest enclaves on Earth.
Ryan, this area near San Francisco's design district beneath this 101 overpass looked a lot different last year. Last year, I spoke with several unhoused people whose encampments were about to be swept away. This year, there was no one to speak with. City officials say they're just enforcing policies they've always had, but according to city data, those policies appear to be working.
Simultaneously, it stands as one of the most starkly visible sights of human suffering on its streets. This profound dichotomy is no mere coincidence. It is the deliberate, though perhaps unintended, outcome of a system. And that system, finally, is beginning to buckle under its own immense pressure. This episode will not be graphic. We will not delve into explicit descriptions of drug use. We will not, under any circumstances, glamorize addiction. Nor will we transform genuine human pain into a mere spectacle. Our purpose here is to comprehend what is unfolding, to dissect the underlying reasons, and to explore what authentic solutions might truly entail, long after the news cameras have departed. Because this narrative is not about bad people. It is a profound story about a city that became prohibitively expensive to simply exist in a place so costly to breathe, that it then expressed surprise when its inhabitants inevitably began to break. Welcome to Homeless U.S. News. Tonight, we journey into the very epicenter of San Francisco's homelessness crisis, transcending the sensatio. No headlines, sidestepping the political posturing, and moving beyond the well-worn talking points. We venture into that moving fog where grand policies brutally collide with the raw realities of human lives. Stay with me, because the pressing question isn't merely whether San Francisco retains its breathtaking beauty. The true question is whether a city of such stunning beauty can also manage to remain a fundamentally decent one.
Now, Leah tells me she's not currently on any wait list for housing. The process, she says, has just been too difficult, but tells me that she does plan to try again soon. And back here near the design district, the enforcement has been clear. I've seen a handful of SFPD vehicles and California Highway Patrol cars that have been helping in this enforcement as the city continues these enforcement efforts across the city. Ryan?
Part 1. The Split-Screen City. San Francisco presents a stark, undeniable split screen. On one side, unbridled luxury. On the other, desperate survival. You might stand before a high-end boutique where a single designer shopping bag carries a price tag, exceeding some individual's entire daily food budget. Then, you simply turn your head to witness someone struggling to find warmth. All their worldly possessions meticulously packed into a single backpack. The city has always been characterized by its expense, but in the last decade, expensive has mutated into something far more insidious. It has become a mechanism of explicit exclusion. It has transformed into a securely locked gate, impenetrable to many. When the cost of housing soars at a pace vastly outstripping wages, homelessness doesn't materialize from thin air. It descends with the inexorable force of gravity, silent and subtle at first, then sudden, overwhelming, ultimately permanent for too many. What distinguishes San Francisco's situation isn't solely the exorbitant cost of living, but the visceral sharpness of its economic edges. It's the alarming proximity of everything the way immense wealth and profound poverty occupy the very same block, like two utterly disparate planets compelled to share a single stretch of sidewalk. Public discourse frequently simplifies this complex crisis into a singular, easily digestible image, the tent. Yet, the tent itself is not the crisis. It is merely a pronounced symptom. Behind that visible symptom lies a multifaceted tapestry of human experience. Workers who maintain employment but find themselves unable to afford rent in their own city. Seniors whose fixed incomes are cruelly outpaced by relentlessly rising costs. Individuals grappling with untreated mental illness who slip unnoticed through every available safety net. People fiercely battling addiction, unable to access stable treatment without the foundational stability of housing. Families who remain invisible to viral news clips because they sleep discreetly in cars, moving quietly, constantly trying to evade detection. In a city that prides itself on identity and providing a voice to all, the unhoused are frequently relegated to mere background noise, and the profound moral injury reveals itself thus. San Francisco speaks in the language of progressivism, yet often delivers outcomes that are brutal in their reality. Not because its citizens are devoid of empathy many care deeply, but because compassion, when unaccompanied by sufficient capacity and resources, inevitably curdles into frustration. And that frustration, over time, dangerously morphs into policies that prioritize superficial cleanliness over genuine care. This critical shift in priorities defines the story of 2025. Part 2. The New Rules When the Law Changes the Street. For years, numerous West Coast cities found themselves operating under significant legal constraints, which inherently limited the aggressive removal of encampments, particularly when adequate shelter beds were unavailable. In practical terms, this created an intractable stalemate. Tents gradually became semi-permanent fixtures. Sidewalks evolved into hotly contested territories. Long-term residents expressed feelings of abandonment. Dedicated outreach teams felt perpetually stuck in unproductive cycles. And the public, ultimately, demanded a fundamental reset. Then, the legal landscape dramatically shifted. A pivotal Supreme Court ruling, frequently referenced as the Grants Pass effect, significantly expanded cities' latitude to enforce public camping bans. It did not mandate that cities conduct sweeps. Instead, it carved out a much clearer legal pathway for enforcement, even in scenarios where shelter availability remained limited. And for a city already weary and searching for answers, a new legal lane swiftly transforms into a wide-open highway. In 2025, this shift is palpably evident in San Francisco. It's not reflected in grand speeches or public pronouncements. It's discernible in the precise timing of events. Early mornings, public works crews meticulously at work, a visible police presence nearby, sidewalks systematically cleared, personal belongings methodically bagged. People quietly moved along. Officials may label these actions a resolution or a cleanup, but for the individual living on the street, it can feel like the utter demolition of the last fragile structure they painstakingly built simply to survive. Here's what rarely makes it into a fleeting news clip: the devastating aftermath. When individuals are subjected to constant displacement, they are rendered incapable of achieving any semblance of stability. When people are scattered across different areas, the vital work of outreach becomes exponentially more challenging. When individuals lose crucial documents, essential medication, or their only phone, their already arduous path back indoors becomes significantly longer, not shorter. And therein lies the profound paradox of enforcement-led policy. It might indeed make a specific block appear more orderly today, while simultaneously making the prospect of genuine recovery immeasurably harder tomorrow. San Francisco's current debate extends far beyond mere tents. It is a fundamental interrogation of the very purpose of public space itself. Is a sidewalk exclusively designated for commerce and casual comfort? Or is it also the unavoidable forum where the city must confront the people it has, in various ways, failed? In 2025, the city is increasingly and decisively embracing the former answer. The latter answer, and the human suffering it represents, is being systematically pushed into darker, less visible corners into industrial zones, quieter residential streets, hidden parking lots, places where the pain is not only less visible, but often considerably more dangerous. The streets may appear cleaner, but the people themselves did not simply disappear. They just learned, out of necessity, to hide. Part 3. The Hollow Downtown and the Doom Loop. Now, let's turn our attention to downtown. Because San Francisco's homelessness crisis does not exist in isolated vacuum. It is deeply embedded within a larger, more systemic collapse, a downtown core that has yet to fully recover. From the compounding shocks of widespread remote work, drastically reduced foot traffic, and an alarming number of business closures, walk through certain stretches of the financial district, and you can distinctly feel it, the eerie quiet, the absence of the familiar urban rush, the proliferation of empty storefronts, a strange, unsettling sensation that the city's vibrant heart is now beating at a significantly slower rhythm than it once did. When offices empty out, the entire ecosystem around them undergoes a profound transformation. Fewer daily commuters translates directly to fewer potential customers. Fewer customers means local retail establishments are driven to struggle or fail. Retail closures, in turn, create desolate dead zones within the urban fabric. These dead zones inevitably foster a pervasive sense of unsafety. Concerns about safety then further diminish crucial foot traffic. This is the very essence of the doom loop, a self-reinforcing economic spiral where fear and vacancy mutually exacerbate each other. And within this loop, homelessness functions as both a significant cause and a tragic consequence. Some businesses choose to close their doors because the conditions outside feel utterly unmanageable. But when businesses shutter, the street immediately becomes less supervised and less active, creating precisely the kind of empty space where disorder can proliferate and take root. This is precisely where public debate around the crisis becomes emotionally volatile and deeply polarized. Business owners emphatically state, "I am not heartless, but I cannot reasonably operate my business under these conditions." Residents assert, "I pay my taxes. I expect my child to be able to walk to school safely." Advocates counter, "Sweeps do not solve homelessness. They merely displace it." Outreach workers lament, "We cannot perform miracles without adequate housing solutions." And unhoused individuals often quietly, often completely ignored, simply say, "I am trying to survive." Every single voice articulates a valid piece of the truth. However, the city remains in desperate need of a cohesive plan that can simultaneously encompass and address all of these disparate, yet interconnected, realities. Because when downtown areas collapse, the city's vital revenue streams dramatically shrink. And when the city loses revenue, it is compelled to cut essential public services. And when those crucial services dwindle, the crisis inevitably grows larger and more entrenched. That is why solving homelessness is not merely a moral imperative. It is an economic necessity. It is a civic responsibility. It is, at its core, a fundamental question of whether a city can genuinely function when it ceases to be a shared space for all its inhabitants. Part 4. The public health emergency that rewrites everything. San Francisco's escalating street crisis in 2025 simply cannot be fully understood without acknowledging one overwhelming reality. A pervasive public health emergency is reshaping the street environment with a speed that far outstrips the pace of policy development. It is possible to state this plainly without resorting to graphic details. Opioid addiction, and particularly the devastating rise of fentanyl, has profoundly transformed the very nature of street survival. Fentanyl is extraordinarily powerful. It is frighteningly unpredictable, and it has become terrifyingly widespread. Its omnipresence has fundamentally altered the rhythm and urgency of crisis response, because the risk of overdose is now constant, immediate, and recovery becomes immeasurably harder when every single day is a desperate fight just to stay alive. San Francisco has historically been synonymous with harm reduction strategies, innovative approaches specifically designed to keep people alive and mitigate immediate risks. Supporters passionately argue that these strategies prevent countless deaths and create crucial opportunities for future connection and treatment. Critics, conversely, contend that harm reduction, when implemented without robust treatment pathways, can feel dangerously akin to surrender. Here is the uncomfortable truth that both sides often overlook. You cannot logically debate your way out of an acute shortage of resources. If the city fundamentally lacks enough detox beds, enough stabilization units, enough mental health treatment slots, and enough truly supportive housing, then every single strategy, no matter how well-intentioned, inevitably becomes a partial, inadequate solution. People are exhorted to get help, but the help is consistently delayed. People are instructed to go to treatment, but a lengthy waiting list stands in their way. People are told to get stable, but genuine stability requires the fundamental security of a door that locks. And when the street itself is characterized by relentless instability, addiction ceases to be merely a drug problem that transforms, irrevocably, into a dire survival problem. Some individuals use substances because they simply cannot find sleep amidst the chaos. Some use because it's the only way they know to quell overwhelming panic. Some use because they are desperately trying to escape the torment of their memories. Some use because the street environment is ceaselessly loud, bone-chillingly cold, and relentlessly harsh, and a brief chemical escape feels like the only quiet they can possibly afford. This is not offered as an excuse for addiction. It is presented as an essential explanation for its persistence. In 2025, San Francisco is making concerted efforts to crack down on open-air drug markets and visible public disorder. The societal pressure to do so is immense and genuine. Public patience has worn thin. Overdose deaths are devastating families and communities, and residents are unequivocally demanding safer streets. But a crackdown undertaken without adequate treatment and housing capacity inevitably becomes a tragic revolving door. Crisis gives removal, gives relapse, gives crisis again. The truth, though uncomfortable, must be confronted. A city cannot simply arrest its way to widespread recovery. A city cannot sweep its way to improved public health. If San Francisco genuinely desires fewer people dying on its streets and fewer people living outside, it needs the very same foundational elements that every city needs. Treatment services that people can access rapidly and without bureaucratic hurdles. Mental health care that doesn't demand months of agonizing wait times to reach. And housing solutions durable enough to hold people long enough for their lives to genuinely begin to change. Without that indispensable foundation, the fog over the city doesn't lift. It just becomes relentlessly thicker. Part 5. The billion-dollar question. Where does the money go? Now we delve into the segment that inevitably provokes widespread anger. San Francisco allocates truly enormous sums of money to its homelessness response. The city funds an extensive network of shelters, numerous outreach teams, supportive housing initiatives, a multitude of behavioral health programs, and contracts with a vast array of service providers. And yet, the public consistently asks the same exasperated question: how can the spending figures be so extraordinarily high, and the street crisis still feel so profoundly out of control? This persistent question relentlessly fuels public mistrust. It breeds deep cynicism among citizens. It cultivates the corrosive belief that nothing truly works, that everyone involved is somehow corrupt, that every program is inherently a scam. The underlying reality, however, is significantly more complex. Many dedicated frontline workers are engaged in incredibly difficult, often thankless, work every single day. But an elaborate system, even one staffed by highly committed individuals, can still fail catastrophically. How? Because vast networks of public contracts can become bewilderingly tangled. Because accountability metrics can become tragically blurry. Because various agencies can operate in counterproductive silos, hindering coordinated efforts. Because genuine outcomes can be incredibly challenging to accurately measure. Because a program can appear undeniably busy without necessarily being genuinely effective. A city can diligently fund a host of vital services, providing meals, offering showers, conducting outreach efforts, and still conspicuously fail to transition people into stable housing at the scale that is desperately needed. When this unfortunate scenario occurs, the entire system begins to resemble relentless motion without any measurable progress. And when supportive housing units do exist, another painful truth frequently emerges. If placement pipelines are agonizingly slow, if critical paperwork delays are constant, if interagency coordination repeatedly fails, then desperately needed housing units can sit lamentably vacant, while human beings remain trapped outside simply because bureaucracy, by its nature, moves far slower than urgent human need. In 2025, both voters and residents are emphatically demanding greater transparency, much tighter oversight, and far clearer, measurable results. How many individuals were successfully housed last quarter? Of those, how many subsequently returned to the street? How long, on average, did the housing placement process actually take? Which specific programs have demonstrably reduced homelessness, and which have merely managed its symptoms? This growing demand is not about demonizing non-profit organizations as a concept. It is about a resolute refusal to accept a systemic failure where spending consistently increases, yet tangible, positive outcomes do not. Because homelessness is not a mere branding problem that can be spun. It is an urgent, undeniable emergency. And emergencies, by their very nature, demand precise measurement, urgent action, and unflinching honesty. Part 6. The other homelessness, cars, RVs, and the people you don't see. If your focus is exclusively on visible tents, you will inevitably overlook a substantial and critical portion of the crisis. San Francisco harbors a quieter, more concealed form of homelessness, one that often hides in plain sight. On the peripheries of the bustling city, individuals living out of their vehicles, people sleeping in recreational vehicles, RVs, those precariously couch surfing among acquaintances or family, families doubled up in dangerously overcrowded apartments, individuals managing to stay in motels when they can barely afford it, only to fall back into their cars when the money runs out. Vehicle residency very often represents the final, fragile step before an individual is forced onto the street. For many, a car is the absolute last private space they possess. It is a place where they can, for a fleeting moment, lock a door. A space where they can pretend, if only for a brief respite, that they still retain some semblance of control over their lives. But even this last refuge is profoundly fragile. Parking tickets accumulate relentlessly. City rules for vehicle dwellers constantly change. The threat of tow trucks becomes a perpetual nightmare. The city may understandably perceive RVs as an unwelcome nuisance. Neighborhoods may voice legitimate complaints about their presence, and sometimes those complaints are indeed understandable. But here's the stark, uncomfortable truth. If you forcibly remove vehicle dwellers without concurrently providing a viable, safe alternative, you are not diminishing homelessness. You are merely converting it into a more visible and often more dangerous form of street homelessness. San Francisco has experimented with safe parking programs, designated supervised spaces where people can legally park their vehicles and access basic services. But the scale of these initiatives is almost universally insufficient to meet the overwhelming need. And then there's yet another strategy: relocation. Programs such as Homeward Bound offer travel assistance for individuals who can verify they have supportive networks elsewhere. For some people, this can be a genuine lifeline, a vital chance to reconnect with estranged family, to start anew in a less expensive city, to truly rebuild their lives. But it is far from a universal solution. Some individuals literally have no one left. Some existing family connections are incredibly fragile and quickly collapse. Some inevitably return to homelessness in a new city when that support network inevitably falters. A bus ticket can symbolize profound hope, or it can be a form of displacement, albeit with more compassionate marketing. So Part 6 compels us to ask a simple, yet penetrating question. Is the city genuinely striving to solve homelessness, or is it merely attempting to move it out of sight? Because a true solution is ultimately measured by sustained stability, not by superficial visibility. Outro, the soul of the city. San Francisco remains undeniably breathtaking. But beauty is not synonymous with goodness, and technological progress is not the same as fundamental care. The city's iconic fog serves as a perfect metaphor. It softens the sharp edges of the skyline. It subtly hides the underlying damage. It imbues everything with a sense of distance, even when the harsh reality is directly in front of you. But we cannot, and must not, permit the fog to become an excuse for inaction or indifference. Because the people living outside are not merely part of the city's scenery. They are complex, vulnerable human beings. They are the worker who lost their housing after a single, devastating medical bill. They are the senior whose modest rent surged faster than their hard-earned retirement check. They are the person grappling with mental illness who couldn't access timely care. They are the individual battling addiction who cannot possibly recover without a stable foundation. They are the family quietly existing in their car, desperately praying no one notices them. And if our collective response to their plight is solely rooted in removal and displacement, the city does not become safer. It simply becomes colder. San Francisco absolutely can choose a different, more humane path. But this path demands profound courage in arenas where courage is often deeply unpopular. Building critically needed housing, even in the face of vociferous neighborhood resistance. Aggressively expanding treatment capacity instead of simply pretending it already exists. Funding programs that demonstrably prove outcomes, not merely document activity. Actively preventing eviction and housing loss before it spirals into an encampment. Treating addiction as the public health emergency it truly is, while simultaneously insisting on clear, accessible pathways to genuine recovery. And fundamentally creating a system where help is swift, practical, and genuinely reachable for everyone who needs it. And for you, the individual watching this, here's what truly matters. You do not need to be a politician or an activist to have a tangible impact. Support the organizations doing the essential work of real outreach and housing navigation. Show up to public meetings when proposals for housing and treatment are being discussed, and speak forcefully in favor of solutions. Demand measurable outcomes from your elected leaders, specifically, how many people housed, by when, and with what comprehensive support. And on the street itself, choose the smallest act that actively pushes back against dehumanization. Acknowledge people. A simple hello can be the profound beginning of someone remembering that they still exist, that they are still seen. This is Homeless US News. If you would like us to cover the issues in your neighborhood, your city, your specific street, please tell us in the comments below. Share this critical report with someone who still believes homelessness is just a choice. Subscribe if you seek stories told with unwavering facts, deep humanity, and an unshakable refusal to look away. Because the true measure of any city is not the grandeur of its skyline, it is how many of its own people it steadfastly refuses to abandon.